Good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. My name is Keaton Shaw. It's a brand new day. Families are still recovering from the experience, the repercussions of a tropical wave that passed over Trinidad and Tobago between Wednesday and yesterday, though the yellow level alert is still in effect until 12 p.m. today. Schools have reopened across Trinidad, whilst in Tobago the THA made a decision to keep schools closed. Today they will reopen on Monday. So the traffic this morning also indicated that not many people are still back out to work. It was not as heavy as per usual, so that's a sign that there are still those who are trying to essentially gather themselves, their lives and whatever they can from the destruction of the floods, or the flash floods, as the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, Faris Arawi, put it. We will continue that conversation a bit later on. Let me introduce to my co-host and colleague. He's alongside me, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Morning, Keaton. It's a beautiful day this morning. It actually makes me kind of wonder just how is it that we could have such terrible weather that only affects such a small part of the country. Well, relatively speaking, maybe it's a big part. I'm not entirely sure the full extent geographically, but I know Port of Spain and San Fernando seem to have been not necessarily heavily affected. And given the distance, you know, the space in between, how much really were we flooded on the western side? On the eastern side or the northeast, it's a whole different story. Tobago, of course, right? So it's just incredible to me that things have seemingly just gone back to normal relatively quickly. And it's almost like if the floods did not happen.
Well,
to those of us that didn't experience it.
I think the change in weather, given we're in the Atlantic hurricane season and in the tropics, weather just changes and shifts dramatically in an instant. I mean, we would have witnessed that on Tuesday. Tuesday was quite sunny. Wednesday morning, Sean said it's a good day for rain. He was looking forward to it.
Overcast.
All right. No, and nothing's wrong with that because I mean, I enjoy the rain myself. I very much enjoy the rain at night.
I very much missed the cloud cover this morning. I think this might have been the warmest morning for the week, or maybe, you know, everybody got used to temperatures being just a little bit cooler for the last 2 days.
Or rather, the showers over the last couple of days as well. I mean, within your home has been very, very cold. But that's the thing. Before impending weather, very heavy rains, heavy showers, it's very hot, it's very humid. And often enough people say, well, it's the moisture being sucked up into the atmosphere. And it's the same thing again this morning. It is quite humid, a very hot morning. So again, wherever you are this morning, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. And we hope all is well with you. We really hope all is well with you as recovery efforts and in some instances, rescue efforts continue. Now, let's shift across a bit to something that we did touch on yesterday. It was part of the story when the Minister of Education, Dr. Nyan Gatsby-Dolly, indicated that schools will be closed. That message came just after 7 a.m. yesterday morning. Now, she has faced criticisms, and from myself as well, from Mr. Camille Pascal, and by Mr. Shawn Michael Small as well, over the timing of that release. And it has been justified on the part of the Minister, as well as the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, Faris Arawi, stating that a yellow level alert, listen to this, folks, we gave late notice because a yellow level alert is not sufficient to close schools. That's absolutely ridiculous. First of all, you weren't entirely specific. Yellow level in terms of riverine, because your justification for closing schools was riverine. The riverine alert went from yellow to orange. That was your justification. Now you're saying that a yellow level is not sufficient. However, the thing is, whilst we cannot anticipate these things happening, bear in mind, we are in the Atlantic hurricane season. So we should at least be prepared for the possibilities of what are to come. Putting all that aside, my criticisms of the Minister remain, simply because even if a yellow level alert is not enough, the extent to what we saw on Wednesday And the mere fact that the Minister of Local Government saw it fit to have a press conference to address the fact that we've had over 140 reports of floodings, and I think it's just a lot more than that. And the mere fact that he had to address the extent and the severity of those floodings, what we would have witnessed on Wednesday gave enough credence for the Minister of Education to make that decision earlier. And here I say she should take a lesson from the THA, who gave a release the night before. Simple.
Now, ironically, we can't use results-based analysis. That's not necessarily fair. I don't know if the meteorologist reporting to the THA definitely was able to definitively say, you're going to have flooding and landslips, this is what the rain is going to be, and it was completely accurate. I don't know. I think Tobago saw the possibilities, the THA saw the possibilities, and decided to take precautions. To what extent were they reasonable? Since we don't know exactly what they were told, it's hard to say. Of course, Tobago has to deal with a smaller number of schools. Now, I kind of get what the minister is trying to say. Except the problem is, you still kept schools open that, again, and we don't want to do results-based, but it showed that, yes, okay, maybe some schools, it might have been okay for them to have class, but we don't know to what extent the weather, how it would have impacted across the country. And the results are, okay, it impacted a section of the country. Fine. Did anybody know for sure that's how it would have played out?
When you say a section of the country, do you speak specifically to a certain district or the east-west corridor?
Well, wherever saw the serious flooding that we saw in videos.
Well, that was throughout the country.
Right? I know that was throughout, but there were areas that did not have flooding, right? But my point is, I don't think anybody was able to predict it accurately, okay, here will flood, here will not flood. So, more importantly, even if you could, then you should at the very least consider closing schools within the vicinity of those areas that have to use transportation routes that go through those areas, that rely on infrastructure of those areas. So you could have technically had schools in Port of Spain open. But then again,
you have students who are probably not residing in those areas.
Right.
You have to go to schools that are open.
Right. Now you go into what is fair. But even then, even if we knew, okay, Port of Spain and San Fernando will not be affected, those schools should remain open. We will tell the parents, take your child to school. Well, how are we really going to know that? So you're taking a risk, right? And I think, ultimately speaking, maybe yellow alert is too vague. Maybe the information they had was too open, or maybe they were just unwilling to make a definitive decision, because the last time they did that, it kind of fizzled into nothing.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you on the basis that, whilst you're saying that we cannot be results-based in our argument here, from my position, what I witnessed on Wednesday, and the mere fact that the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government can say that himself, his team, Trinidad and Tobago was monitoring the system since the beginning of the week. That's one. So you were monitoring the system. Two, you saw the impact and the severity of the system on Wednesday, right? The results of which were experienced almost 10 minutes after the rain fell, right? Three, the yellow level alert remained in effect and is, by the way, as much as we're seeing sun this morning, it's still in effect. You know, if I take all that into account, and I also considered the fact that they now use the tides as the argument, which is predicted on a daily basis, by the way, so you can say that's fair enough. But the rivers were at a high level, and you were expecting more rain. I thought it would have been best that you give that notice the night before.
So when I say don't judge it based by results, it also is for the ministry. Don't judge it based on the results of, well, it kind of worked out. No. When you have an emergency situation, the whole idea is to plan to prevent, in case of disaster, break glass. Right? You want to prevent as much as possible the need to not responding to the emergency. Right? We proactively respond with measures to limit the disaster response. And that ultimately is what I'm saying, because I'm sure there will be some people who were not in a flood area that thought it was fine. You know, I mean, they took their time, they weren't sure. And that's the thing, because they weren't sure is not necessarily an excuse. And what tends to happen throughout history is, two things happen. There's no disaster, so you get away. Or there is a disaster, and then there's an inquiry, and blah, 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 and blah, 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 and somebody has to be the scapegoat, and usually it's the decision maker who was unsure and who was unwilling to take a potentially unpopular decision, because nobody wants to shut things down, right? I mean, Kemiel pointed it out yesterday. There were probably some families who had to go to work and needed schools to be open so that their kids could be supervised, have someone responsible for them while the parents are at work.
And then
I understand that.
Right, great. And on that note, it's easier to get somebody and make preparations the evening or the night before as compared to 7 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. So when you dilly-dally and dither and hesitate, a late decision sometimes could be even worse than an earlier decision that might have been unnecessary, but only after you see the results of something that you can't predict. So, I mean, you see it all the time in disaster management. That's how accidents basically happens. No, I don't want to close down my building because people have nowhere to live and the shops need to be open. And then the building collapses, and then what happens, right? How was I supposed to know? There were warning signs. You just did not want to face the fact that, you were hedging your bets. You were trying to say, well, hopefully it doesn't happen. And that is TNT in a nutshell in disasters. What do you think about it? God is a Trini, hopefully it won't hit us bad.
God is a Trini. What's that line that they always teach us in primary school? God helps those who help themselves.
Ironically, I don't know how correct that line is, because I don't think it's anywhere in the Bible, but it's a good saying.
It's a good saying from the point that even if, and let's not have a debate about religion. We already talked politics. Let's not include religion. But I think the entire messaging behind that is, you need to really help yourself. So you have a brain. You have that capacity, you're able to make decisions for yourself. You sometimes need to utilize that in your best interest and in other people's best interest.
But in this case, and we did have a photo to show,
which we will show just now.
In this case, it's one thing for the government to make a decision when they have experts and they could call up people and say, hey, we need to know what's going on. How many families we're going to have? They're all not going to have access to meteorologists and Doppler radar and the storm tracker and all of these things. There's not. So they can't make an informed decision. This is one of the things that the government is supposed to provide citizens, decision making on things that we cannot have the full information, we won't know. It's a service. Because we don't have access to this, they provide that service for us. But they're not, are they? No. We'll get to that when we come back.
Are you sure about that? I think
they're not providing it for
I think
us.
one minister might disagree with you.
By her own words, she's not providing it for us.
You're speaking of that minister. I was speaking about the Minister of Defense. And I'm not talking about national security. I'm talking about a certain former Attorney General who is now the local government minister.
You mean the legal defense?
The legal defense, the entire philosophical defense as well. Anyway, let's take a break here on the program, and when we return, we'll give you the definition of flash flooding. You'll see. We'll be right back.
Baked fresh for you every day and delivered nationwide. kissed and rich bread.
Fill your day with love.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we see you next time.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN. Sean Michael Small. Yesterday, the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government held a press conference. As was expected, and let me just put it out there, I give him credit for his communication with the public. Oftentimes, we are critical of ministers for not communicating with the public and essentially leaving us in the dark, and he took the initiative to more or less give a response to the government's response of flooding and disaster management. But I will just say that I wasted almost 1 hour of my life yesterday watching him, not because he said foolishness, it's because he essentially stated the obvious, in my opinion. So I give him credit for communicating, I give him my criticism for essentially not. I'm tired and fed up of hearing this thing about we did this, we did that, sandbags were distributed, sandbags over 50,000. That was, and we cannot, what he said, and we'll go to the videos in a moment, but I just want to mention, he stressed many a times that this was not a tropical storm, this was a yellow level alert, and he also stressed we couldn't anticipate this. And I think that is poor, because let me stress that we are in the Atlantic hurricane season. We only have 2 seasons, wet and dry. Right?
Yeah, I did see that part, yeah.
And I'm just here like, what nonsense is this? But let's take a look at this first clip of the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government. Well, we do apologize for that. Sometimes that just happens. We'll try to work on that. But The minister was essentially stating that they've had over 145 reports of flooding across Trinidad and Tobago. And I think I more or less gave away what he said before we went to the video anyway. But I think we do have that video for you now, so let's hear it from the man himself.
We saw between yesterday and today a total of approximately 145 reports of flooding. That was 135 as at yesterday and 10 more today. We saw these things happen between the Arima Borough Corporation, Chaguanas Borough Corporation, the Mayaro Regional Corporation, Sangre Grande, Tunapuna Piaco, and Princestown. So we didn't see it in San Fernando, we didn't see it in Port of Spain, we didn't see significant activity in other areas. I can tell you, Tunapuna Piaco Regional Corporation had 95 of those events, and Sangre Grande Regional Corporation had 23 of those events alone. In terms of landslips, we've had 30 landslips, all of which are being managed. I wish to stop and compliment all of the regional corporations, and in particular CPEP, that worked straight throughout the night, and all of the coordination happened via members of parliament on all parts of Trinidad, that is both opposition and government. We were in full coordination with each other overnight, and we deployed all resources as required. Cleanup operations are in gear. We saw in particular, again, that Sangre Grande Regional Corporation had 13 of those landslides. We saw Sanwa Laventil had 8 of them. Diego Martin Regional Corporation had 2 of them. And therefore we had, again, what I'd call a regional effect of the weather hitting us. I can confirm that as of now, we've distributed over 2,437 sandbags. I want to remind you that to date, in the last 2 occasions that I've appeared before you, we distributed well over 50,000 sandbags. So this is a cumulative addition of resources. In the landslip areas, we have positioned assets right across the north coast, and we're warning Trinidad and Tobago that the soil is saturated. Your government comprises a coordinating team for these events. It's Rural Development and Local Government in conjunction with Minister of Public Utilities, in conjunction with Minister of National Security, in conjunction with Minister of Works and Transport, in conjunction with Minister of Communications. The 14 municipal corporations, all their disaster management units are in gear. They're coordinated from our head office at the Rural Development and Local Government structure. We have CPEP, National Forestry, URP, we have WASA, we have TNTEC, Defense Force, we have all of our structures that are in operation, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and very importantly, providing accuracy in terms of reports. We have the Municipal Police of Trinidad and Tobago. These reside in the municipal corporations, and I want to say that they have allowed us to filter real news from fake news.
Well, listening to the minister, first of all, I appreciate that he gave credit to all those involved in trying to, you know, the artifacts, trying to sort out that situation throughout Trinidad and Tobago. But overall, if I must say, it sounded so much of a defense to me, more than anything else. You know, because as much as we can give credit to CPEP, to government members of parliament and opposition members of parliament, need I say, it is their duty, right? I'm using that word over responsibility or their job. I'm saying it is their duty as a member of parliament to work with the constituents in instances like this as well. It just comes across once more as a defense. Sandbags, 50,000 sandbags. To me, those sandbags, as much as some businesses might need it, the mere fact that we've gotten accustomed to this entire thing of we have to have sandbags, to me, it's trying to compensate for a lack of drainage in Trinidad and Tobago. And even if the rainfall was heavy, and in 10 minutes, cars got washed away and all that.
I think the key thing to ask is, how much flood water was kept at bay thanks to sandbags? Where was embankments built up temporary ones with sandbags or existing ones improved by sandbags.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about sandbags after my house is flooded, right? Speaking rhetorically. I'm pretty sure everybody who had their house or car flooded isn't necessarily concerned about sandbags at that point. It's already flooded. They need the water to recede before a sandbag could do anything more for them. So this is my frustration, and I said it yesterday. It's as though the horse has bolted from the barn. We don't even have a door to close the barn. So the next horse is going to go, and the next horse is going to go.
Mm.
I get it. They want to say, oh, it was a yellow level alert. You're paid the big bucks. Or you rather, well, it's not really supposed to be big bucks, is it? You're in the position because you are supposed to be bearing the responsibility to help people carry out certain things they cannot do for themselves. And one of the things is to make overall national decisions. So I don't appreciate, listen, I understand it might have been a difficult thing to figure out, right? Weather is not perfect. But we don't need to hear some primary school level defense, well, it's not my fault, he hit me first. No. I just because it's almost like if it reeks or it implies that, well, it's all your fault. We did the best we could. You all should do better, you know. But we did the best we could. It's not our fault, so don't blame us. That's not how you lead. That's not how you bear responsibility. And if you can't bear responsibility for a relatively small disaster like this, I say relative in quotes or in quotes, what happens if we get a bigger disaster? Like what happened to Haiti with the earthquake? Like what happens if a hurricane actually hits us for once in a meaningful way? What are you going to do then? You're going to, because you can't even take responsibility for this, because you are in charge. The buck stops at you. I would have loved to think that at least some of the people in the cabinet who are /were business owners will understand that nobody cares when your business goes under. You have to be responsible for it. Nobody else will care. You're in government, nobody else is doing your role.
I want you to hold that. I appreciate your frustration and I share your frustration. But I think this is the best clip, in my opinion, which summarizes yesterday's press conference. Because the next clip we're about to show, I will tell you, it was one long statement. We had to cut it up, but we're not being unfair in any sense because we didn't leave out any information as such. Rather, these are the important snippets from it. I want you to take a look at this video because we have to go into a break almost right afterwards, immediately following the video. When we come back, we will tie that into the same photo that you wanted to show and comment on it. So let's take a look at this clip from the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government.
And therefore, we could not anticipate what was going to happen. We have to measure how the government responds on each occasion. If we close schools every time we go into a yellow alert, we're going to be in trouble because we're in a hurricane season. We have a wet season, we have a dry season. And therefore, we have to be really careful how we organize ourselves. There are some significant issues that we have to treat with now that are being addressed. So if you look to the work and the culvert and drainage issues that the government is putting down through the Ministry of Works and Transport, you'll see at Aruka Maloney, you will see at different areas, you'll see that we're looking at upsizing capacity of drainage issues. And there's a very large program. The budget this year speaks to a lot of that. I spoke in my contribution about 200% increase, 100% increase on funding from the development program perspective for flood mitigation and drainage issues. So we have a very dedicated rollout in that regard. And it was something that is certainly well coordinated coming out of COVID, coming out of $13 billion in deficit, coming out of borrowings to just pay salaries. These are priority issues for the government on a go-forward basis. The water went from 2 feet to 6 feet. That's what you call flash flooding. And flash flooding, I was explaining to someone recently that flash flooding is a phenomenon that comes with urbanization. the more roofs that we have, the more structures that we have where the rain falls off rapidly into gutters, is the faster that water works its way onto the streets. And when it gets there, it has to move, and therefore high tide affects you, etc. So we're seeing the effects of urbanization. We're seeing the effects of quarrying on the hills. We're seeing the effects of the improvements that people make over time. So yes, it is something that you constantly monitor.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best for your baby is at dbesttoys.com. We have the best strollers, car seats, walkers, feeding accessories, playpens, cribs, clothing, and the widest range of brand name toys like Barbie, Hot Wheels, Nerf, LOL, Fisher-Price, Cocomelon, Intex Pools, Amazon Fire tablets, HP and Gateway laptops, and the best bikes, scooters, skateboards, and ride-on. Visit us in-store at 7 Main Road, McBean, or shop online now at dbesttoys.com. That's dbesttoys.com. We have the best toys at the best prices.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And if you are now joining us, we have been going over some of the government's responses to criticisms with regards to how they managed both the overall situation of the flooding that we witnessed earlier this week, as well as more specifically with the question about the timing that they closed schools. We already showed 2 clips of the Minister of Rural Development give his 2 cents on the matter. And let me be upfront and say first that, like my co-host, Mr. Keaton Shaw, I appreciate Minister Alwari being willing to communicate with the population. I believe he took questions, right?
He did.
After he made his initial statements. So all of those things are good. Being made available to the media, being made available to communicate, saying something. Because more often than not, politicians, they get in trouble mainly when they're saying things. And the temptation is to just go radio silent as much as possible. On a technical level, there's a lot that I liked from his communication, which, to be fair, I never really had a problem with him on that level. My problem is always his content and so many things he says outside of official press conferences and the like. The content, like other times before, here is where it's lacking. First of all, his definition of flash flooding does not reference any sort of timing. So he says 2 to 6 feet. Well, it could take 6 months for water levels to go from 2 to 6 feet. That's not flash flooding. You need to have a certain, it needs to happen in a certain short space of time. He did not explain that. So is he saying that there was flash flooding? How quickly was it? How quickly did these floods reach us for him to then justify the use of that term? Huh? I don't know. He didn't really go into those details. That's unfortunate. And more important, I understand what he's trying to say when he says, well, we cannot shut down schools for every yellow alert. I get that. But the flip side is, you kind of shut it down a little late. And I'm pretty sure that they would have had some reasonable signs before 7 a.m. Right? And as much as Tobago is first in line, that's why you could argue they went first. When I was living in Tobago, there were many times that the weather system just completely bypassed Tobago and they were flooded in Central by that afternoon. Right? So you can't just say, well, Tobago's going to absorb a significant brunt of it. It could totally bypass Tobago and hit the East Coast. So at the very least you would think is maybe we should put some measures in to the East Coast. I'm wondering if part of it is a lack of resources, or if it's, again, I'm going to go back to this point, if it's a fear about what happens if the government is shown to be wrong, or when there's no real emergency and the government puts measures in place. Because 3 or 4 of those, and then the population will be like, why are we shutting down schools for? I don't go to work. My child already behind because of COVID. Let them go to school. And I get that. This is where proper communication comes in, where you explain people rather than trying to kind of put the responsibility on them, or at least absolve yourself of any blame. The people are frustrated because of what happened. And you know what? There's a way where you make the same decisions, and if you communicate it better, you will get less criticism and less flack. I want to show this photo of the Minister in the Ministry of Education to kind of show you what I mean. This photo here, it's Minister Lisa Morris, and you are big and you have sense. Me to all who messaging me since 4 a.m. make sensible decisions, aka the best decision for you and yours. Now, first of all, I wonder if all of the messages at 4 a.m. is what prompted the ministry to make a decision by 7 a.m. But it's like a panic decision. Hey, these people panicking and we need to do something, otherwise they're not gonna, if we just leave schools open, they're gonna look at us funny. Tobago closed schools, we can't. No. And I think the other thing is, well, you're saying that you couldn't make a decision earlier, but you expect the people, the big people, use your good, common sense, good judgment. What for the average civilian is going to prepare them to make a decision that you yourself based on your defense, a yellow alert is not enough to close schools.
Well,
right?
actually, her defense was different. Her defense for that post was, and I quote here from Ms. Morris Julian in the Daily Express this morning, she says, "I was speaking as a mother to my constituents. I was asking them to make the right decisions. I did not buff anybody. I was out until 3 a.m. and went back at 9 a.m. She says, regarding my post this morning, multiple calls were made by individuals alerting me of the intention to traverse compromised flooding areas. I didn't get that from that post at all. You know, that seems like you're adding to this. It says, additionally, this was the interesting part. They were also requesting my permission to venture outdoors and into flood-prone areas. Does that make any sense? You know, maybe I'm confused.
No, I think what it is...
Please explain to me.
I'm assuming here, but they're asking for advice. And this is not necessarily the government minister to ask for advice on situations to do with flooding. To be fair, that's way beyond her purview, right?
She says they were asking for my permission.
No, but
hold on. Let me finish the quote.
Okay.
Despite my pleas to desist from engaging in such recklessness, I cited health and safety breaches. However, they were adamant on their course of action.
I mean, first of all, 7 a.m. They were so is this with regards to for kids to be traversing flood areas, or
she made a general statement. She says, you know, this is basically people were messaging her since very early in the morning. She was saying that use your common sense, you know, make the best decision for you and your family. She was speaking to them as a mother, and basically advising them not to go in flood-prone areas, even though they were contacting her for her permission to do so.
Because again, it's like you're acknowledging the fact that people should consider keeping their kids home, because you're not saying it's safe, right? Now maybe she's just hedging her bets. When you don't listen, the intelligence community has this trick. This is one of the problems why weapons of mass destruction in Iraq became a problem, and governments do nonsense when it comes to military action. If I don't take a stance, I'm never wrong. So I can never be held accountable for being wrong.
So
and politicians do it as well.
I just want to say that in one sense, I do not, I think in messaging, tone and context is very important. So quite frankly, I wouldn't have an issue with Lisa Morris Julian or any minister essentially stating, listen, use your common sense.
No.
You know, hold on. In any instance, usually, as I said, I wouldn't have an issue with it in people saying, okay, right? In this particular instance, in my opinion, she was wrong.
Yes.
Right? And I will not defend it. I will not defend that. And you cannot come and say that you didn't buff anybody and you were basically being bombarded with messages since 4 o'clock. Put it this way. 1 week ago, you had the Prime Minister saying that Trinidad and Tobago was an indisciplined society and essentially not mature enough to have a work-from-home policy. 1 week later...
They need to be led.
Right?
Is that it?
It's more or less.
Right.
1 week later, you have a minister saying, well, make a decision for yourself.
No, because she is not taking a stand, right? She is saying, you all make a decision. So if it's wrong, you can't blame me, right? And I do have to question the timing. First of all, again, is there a issue with resources? That's why the government response seems lethargic. And I mean the proactive response, right? It's very easy to justify, oh, we need to put resources when a disaster happened. But not before the disaster. Because again, if the disaster tends to be a false alarm, then people will complain. But with the timing of the ministry's message at 7 a.m., was there nobody monitoring the situation overnight? Wasn't there any concern? Or is it just because, well, we can't do that for every yellow alert? Well, and okay, you know what? Even if that's justifiable going into this situation, you saw the results, right? And while I did say that you can't use results-based analysis to say if you're right or wrong, you can't look at the results and say this is possible, which means that it's possible to happen again. So let's not tell people, well, we couldn't have done it. No, admit that it happened, right? You know, yes, you can explain how difficult it is to predict the weather, but don't go and say, well, we just couldn't have anticipated this at all. So don't blame us. You are the ones in charge. And what you just said, when the Prime Minister basically, you know, we need somebody to listen to. We need to be supervised. We can't work from home. We can't have independent thought.
Can we take a look at this post one more time, this particular photo from Lisa Morris Shulin? Because again, as I said, generally somebody indicating that you know, you're an adult, you know, you have sense. But again, tone and context completely off. You know, at the same time, you're saying you're big and you have sense, but schools remained open up until 7 o'clock in the morning via your ministry.
But Keaton, this is what I don't get. What she says contradicts the defense of the government. How is our adults having sense, we big and we have sense, how is that supposed to help us make a decision when the government, with all of the resources they have, want to claim that they weren't able to make a decision until 7 a.m.?
But somebody said it best yesterday, the government comes from us. Somebody said it best yesterday, the government comes from us and comes from the people. Yeah.
I believe that.
If it was you, you were absolutely right. And this is a very valuable point that ties into this argument. Because I go back. To me, it's like a messaging of convenience. I don't understand why my Prime Minister would say, by the way, throughout COVID-19, it was a work from home policy, right? And then he's saying, well, Trinidad and Tobago society is indisciplined for work from home policy. And then 1 week later, you're saying that they're immature, you know, and then 1 week later, you're coming and saying you're mature enough to make a sensible decision when, as you correctly pointed out, between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m., maybe this was exactly why they made that decision, because they realized the public had pressure on them. And by the way, I know some parents really had no other choice but to take their children to school yesterday until they realized school was closed. We get that. And that's why I keep saying that if it was done earlier, more proactively by the ministry, they could have made available.
See, that is the other thing. It's your job to anticipate all of those eventualities.
But this is...
It's not my job, it's not your... Well, it kind of is our job.
Sure.
But it's not the parents' job to be like, well, if you close school earlier, we would know. That's not their job.
Well, quite frankly, I'll be honest with you. I'll be very honest with you. At the same time, I am not defending the ministers. But I would also like to think, right, and I'm trying to be fair here, I'd also like to think that parents would also be sensible enough
I know it. Okay.
To make those decisions, right?
Well, there's an argument against that.
Okay, but hold on. I would also think, because, you know, when you wake up and you realize, hold on, this rain is still going on. You know, we've seen the flooding throughout the country. I'm probably going to an area which is known for flooding, or I'm probably in an area that's known for flooding, as you said earlier. Okay, great. I think some parents would have been sensible enough to make that decision. There's some that just honestly are looking for guidance at the same time, which is why I can't justify Lisa Morris Shulin's position. But again, we can't anticipate this. That line is frustrating me, because
it's not just that.
It's like, it's an excuse.
It's not just that. We need to understand that messaging kind of works both ways. Leaving school open is the government indirectly, right, telling the population things are going to be fine, you could send your child to school. If you say nothing about it, right, except use your good judgment, but you have schools open, which means that you don't think it's bad enough to close schools. So some people are going to use that to factor into their decision, because it's not their job, right? They don't have all of the information that government is supposed to have. And I know it's not perfect, but it's more than what we've got.
And understandably so. I will not argue against that. I am just utterly frustrated.
Because look, Port of Spain could flood, right? But it didn't this time.
I am just so utterly frustrated, and I'm tired and I'm fed up. I'm really tired and fed up. I'm constantly hearing we could not anticipate this. I'm repeating myself because understand my position, ladies and gentlemen. You have a government minister who said that he now understands how previous local government ministers would have felt when sitting in his seat. At the same time, he's also indicating what we're seeing is the effects of urbanization, which is a complete and it's a stupid, very stupid excuse.
So what he's saying is town and country planning not doing
this. Exactly, right? So not only town and country planning, but local government, because you also need local government approval in constructing. 2, apart from basically 3, them down the drain, if there is a drain at all, you know, you go on to say, okay, we're in the Atlantic hurricane season and the government must be judged on each individual response.
Wait. So it's a yellow alert. We can't anticipate it. But we're in the hurricane season, so we should expect things to be able to be bad. The possibility of things being bad, we should expect it.
Faris Arawi was a complete contradiction of himself throughout that press conference yesterday. And it is for that same reason that I could assure you, ladies and gentlemen, and you probably don't need my assurance, you probably know this already, that for years to come, the results are always going to be the same. And regardless if a government looks at you and tells you that we've distributed 50,000 sandbags, that is a government that is telling you, we don't care about you or your property, because as much as we also acknowledge that people are building stupidly and squatting on lands and building close to rivers, I get that. You know, I will not move away from that point. But this is a government that is telling you, we don't care about you. And our solution is very much temporary for each instance. Come and get your sandbag, that's it. But if your property wash away, use those same sandbags to build back your house. But that is what I'm getting.
Big picture here. It's not just about the floods, and it's not just about the response to disasters and storms and earthquakes, landslips, etc. Now it's about to what extent are politicians able to understand leadership, able to understand what it really means to take responsibility or the responsibility of their office. And what we're seeing is people who've come from the ordinary citizenry, because at the end of the day, they're ordinary, right? Think about a lot of the world leaders that we admire, including somebody in a neighboring CARICOM nation that is not too far from here. I do not expect that Mia Mottley would respond in this manner. Even if she made the same decisions, I do not think she would communicate in this manner.
No, I am so sorry. I am not going to go down that road of bringing up Mia Mottley into this. I really am not going to go into it. I will simply conclude, before we go to News on the Hour, by saying that the minister spoke about the effects of urbanization. That could take years. But finally...
Well, it took years for it to get as bad.
Exactly. So that could take it. Again, poor excuse, poor commentary on your part, Minister. But if you didn't know, let me educate you. The cost of having to shut down your business, the cost of having to clean up, the cost of having to allocate resources, rescue efforts, and in some instances, people losing their homes, their furniture, and whatnot, those costs, if you did not know, Minister, are far greater than the cost of 50,000 sandbags. Just to inform you. We break for WSN's News on the Hour.
That's why we pay for all those relief grants.
Come travel with us as we explore Diwali across the globe.
Diwali is celebrated in many countries worldwide, but do you know the traditions and practices of each nation? From Guyana to Australia, WESN presents Diwali Passport, October 3rd to October 23rd, with replays on October 24th. It's Diwali Passport, a WESN exclusive.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Tobago schools remain closed today. 51-year-old man charged with murder. Additional pathologists for forensics coming soon. Tropical wave that passed over Trinidad and Tobago, now a tropical cyclone. And internationally, COVID wave looms in Europe. Now for the details. The Division of Education Tobago has advised that all schools on the island will remain closed today. The decision was taken after consultation with the Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Office and TEMA. School cleaners and relevant sanitation agencies have been engaged to carry out extensive cleanup operations to ensure that all facilities will be in a state of readiness for the resumption of classes on Monday. Principals, vice principals, senior teachers, office staff and safety officers are expected to attend to coordinate cleanup efforts. A Malik man appeared before a Port of Spain magistrate charged with the death of Dennis Nero. 51-year-old Jonathan Howell of 2nd Street, Malik Barataria, was charged with murder, possession of firearm and ammunition. According to a police report, around 6 a.m. on August 23rd, Dennis Nero was sitting at the corner of Saddle Road and 2nd Street, San Juan, when a lone assailant armed with a firearm approached and shot him several times before fleeing. Nero died at the scene. Additional pathologists are expected to be recruited soon to work at the Forensic Sciences Center. This from Minister of National Security Fitzgerald Hines when he was questioned during yesterday's Standing Finance Committee.
There are 2 vacancies as I speak to you.
Out of a total of 4. We should have 4 officers, not 2?
Yes, one retired recently.
Okay,
and we are in the process of recruiting another.
Yeah, so Minister, I think it was in about the year 2016 we have been hearing that you all are recruiting additional pathologists in partnership with the UNDP.
And we did.
The tropical wave which caused damage across parts of TNT has been designated potential tropical cyclone 13. A hurricane watch is in effect for San Andres, Providencia and Santa Catalina Island, Colombia. In Trinidad and Tobago, the adverse weather alert yellow level will stay in effect until noon today. In international news, a new COVID-19 wave appears to be brewing in Europe as cooler weather arrives, with public health experts warning that vaccine fatigue and confusion over types of shots available will likely limit booster uptake. Omicron subvariants BA4 and 5 that dominated this summer are still behind the majority of infections, but newer Omicron subvariants are gaining ground. Hundreds of new forms of Omicron are being tracked by scientists, World Health Organization officials said this week. WHO data released late on Wednesday showed that cases in the European Union reached 1.5 million last week, up 8% from prior week, despite a dramatic fall in testing. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN. Thank you very much for news on the hour, always keeping us updated and informed. Now, folks, you've heard the rants of Sean Michael Small and myself this morning, and maybe along the way we said something that really appealed to you, whether or not you disagreed or agreed with us. Please share with us your opinion this morning. We'd like to hear from you, the viewer. We're always intrigued and look forward to the interaction and the conversation, sometimes some very heavy debates. So the phone lines are open, the numbers are on the screen. Call in and join us on the program this morning. Whilst we await your calls, let me just mention that throughout the world, it's just heavy news. Yesterday in Las Vegas, there was a shooting. I think 2 individuals were dead, 6 were wounded, and 3 critically in hospital. And Thailand, that one is always very difficult
I saw the headlines and I didn't really want to pay attention to it anymore because I already get upset when I see one child in a one-child tragedy here. I can't take on such a tragedy, and it's so removed from me. It's just too emotionally draining.
Well, just to inform you that what took place in Thailand yesterday, Thai authorities have indicated that it is a former police officer who may have been under the influence of drugs who walked into a daycare center and shot and killed 35 people, the majority of whom were infants. Teachers were also involved in that attack. They succumbed. The police officer, former police officer, then went to his own home, shot his wife and child, and then took his own life.
I don't think he was that high on drugs if he was able to then make decisions and traverse distance.
And that's a good point, but this is according to Thai officials. That's preliminary reports.
No, I get it, and he could have been on something, but for him to commit violence and then after, it could have been a short period of time, travel back to his house.
Well, we're assuming that his house is far away from the daycare.
Fair enough. Fair enough. If it was close to Lenya, he might have been out of his mind, but I don't know. I mean, he was out of his mind, but whether or not his faculties were affected by a foreign substance to that extent, that's up for them to figure out.
We have a caller on the line with us from Digger Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, I just want to make a comment concerning the ministers and the government and the replies that they give to people. I don't understand that when they have their retreats, don't they speak about these things and how to deal with the public and how to answer them? I just don't understand how they're behaving like that. And I mean, you're putting yourself in line to come back in power again, and this is the way you're behaving. You see, the problem is when people have a lot of do have care to concern about expenses when the money comes. That's how they behave, because they have everything coming to them. There's nothing that they have to really do to say, well, go to the way to find money to do extra things. It's the person on the ground and the poor people that suffer these fates.
Yes.
If you just listen to the committee stage and the finance committee yesterday, same set of thing going on in there with them. The way they're answering back to the opposition, and when they ask questions and they just brushing it aside and saying if they need more money, they will come in next midterm and thinking back. But I am getting a feeling that this government, something is wrong drastically where money is concerned, because most of those things that they're talking about doing this year is money that they're paying off debts to the old people, and it's nothing that's going to come forward.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
I just hope that they have their business right, because they cannot be playing with the public like that and have people frustrated. I mean, I've seen some kind of comments on some people making. It's not nice. I mean, I think they should take stock of themselves.
Yeah.
Guys, you have a good weekend and be safe out here and take care of yourselves.
Well, thank you very much, sir. Always good hearing from you, and a great weekend to you and to your family as well. Enjoy it. But you're right, they need to take stock of themselves. I'm listening to the Minister of National Security, and though for the most part within the walls of Parliament, he has, he could be very descriptive sometimes in his vocabulary and in trying to...
Yes, unnecessary.
Peak on towards the opposition. Unnecessary.
But not just unnecessary. So he gives us this veneer of respectability with how he speaks, and then he says some of the most crass, dumb, rum-shop things
He says the allocation to the Ministry of National Security is enough for now. So
what does that mean?
What is also key, he's hinting that we'll take a look at the mid-year budget review next year.
So you know what that means? I'll tell you what that means. That just like Morris, I'm not committing to anything I'm not saying anything definitive. I'm keeping things open so you don't have to hold me accountable to what I'm saying.
As I said, mid-year budget review next year. I mean, very early days, right? But mid-year budget review, very interesting next year. Caller on the line with us from ARO. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
And I must say, it is a cool day to have a great day. And I want to just tie in something that we've been pleading, and I know you guys have been supporting me in the contribution that I made. And we continue to face the deployment of the way of life. And saying that the weather condition has continued to demonstrate his actions, and we are reactive in not critically thinking of solutions. We have too many farmers in this country are depleted, frustrated, and is crying in the wilderness. And yet still, we claim and proclaim that we are doing stuff. And doing stuff is an action word. It is not a task, right? We strategize ourselves in formatting nice presentations, but we are not reaching on the ground where the action needs to happen and move forward. We are continue to deploy ourselves in a way that is way behind. As a farmer, I can tell you, greenhouses, hydroponics is the way to go. Let's take the old farmers that we have and try to elevate the new ones. And we can take up the challenge to go forward to feed ourselves, because in the dry season coming, we're going to have a lot of dry weather. And when it comes, we don't have water to grow our crops. We need to understand survival is the game. Let us continue to press. And I must commend you guys on the program and the interest that you take in understanding the hazards of deployment and the risk assessment that is needed to move forward in our country. I thank you for this moment in time. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir,
you,
for your contribution. We will comment further after this call from Arima. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Kita. Did you hear me?
Caller, you're live, if you're there.
Yeah, man. Speaker.
Hello. All right.
Yeah, Kita.
I think we've lost that caller. Caller, I'm so sorry about that. If you can, please call back in and make your point. But to the caller from Miaro, this situation about wearing your suit and tie and having very nice presentations, but the action is not seen on the ground. I mean, it's time and time and again that I think, I hate to say that we've grown so accustomed to it and we've become immune to inaction in Trinidad and Tobago. But to a certain extent, I blame us. We see a lack of policy, we see a lack of implementation, we see a lack of care, and yet at the end of the day, when I dip my finger, I don't care about myself, put it that way. I don't care about myself, I don't care about you, I don't care about Trinidad and Tobago. All I know is that for whatever reason, these individuals remain.
We see a lack of planning. They implement things, or they try to, but we don't really see how it works as a whole.
Caller from Sanford, I know a couple weeks ago put it best. What's the point of a Ministry of Planning? Like, what do they do? What do they plan?
I don't know.
Caller on the line with us from St. James. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yesterday morning, I called about, the regiment, use of the regiment, and how the regiment gets involved.
Yes.
Now, Teresa Lynch, she's still missing. Actually, the fire services are involved. I am glad that the police not involved because they are trying to curb crime. But
exactly.
The Hunters Association involved.
Yes.
What is the regiment doing? This is bothering me a lot. Why aren't they involved? As a matter of fact, if they get involved, they will learn the outlay and outline of the country. This is good exercise for them.
Yeah.
Why aren't they involved?
Caller, if I may be honest with you, some people are going to disagree with me and disagree with me strongly. But many a times I find myself in a position questioning what is the point of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. I find myself in that position many times.
Yeah.
I think at this time you are also questioning what is their contribution? You know, so I do understand. But thank you very much, caller, for your contribution.
Oh, sorry, there's 4 battalions. The 3rd battalion is the engineer support battalion. Okay, no, right. Support and services, I think, is administrative. So yes, it would just be the 3rd battalion who would probably be deployed first to do anything complex and technical. But with regards to searching, you could technically deploy people from the entire regiment. Infantrymen are supposed to be able to go out into the field and traverse through rural terrain to do searches.
I don't mind being educated this morning. I have no problem in doing that. So what's the point of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force? Somebody tell me.
So, and here's the thing. What is the external threat to need a military? Right? And then, you know, is Grenada going to invade? Right? And a country so much larger than us, if they invade, is you know, a couple hundred or 1,000 people gonna make that much of a difference? If they're going to aid the police and aid in internal security, shouldn't they just be police?
Oh, I apologize. We have a call on the line with we have a call on the line with us from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Morning.
All right, okay. I think also at the same time, I think that's a bit of our fault.
Probably a good idea.
Our directors were informing us there was a call and we took a bit long there. So we apologize for that. But again, it may not be that. We call in and join us. If your service provider is TSTT, I completely understand. You know, I can't blame you at all. If you've noticed... well, you probably won't notice, but our phone lines here in the office. How long it's been? 3-4 months? We have I think the caller is on the line with us from Diego Martin. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hi, morning.
Hi,
good morning.
You're live on the air. Caller?
I think something is wrong with your phone lines this morning.
You can hear me, caller?
Hello?
Yeah, listen to the phone. Don't listen to the television. Listen to us via the phone. We can hear you. All right. We have a call. And listen, by the way, yes, something is wrong with our phones. You can hear it. TSTT is our service provider. That's what's wrong with our phones. We have a call on the line with us from Arima. Good morning, Arima. All right. Yeah, something is really wrong with our phone lines this morning because we had the caller again on the line with us from Arima, and we just lost that call.
Well, again, is it on our end or is it on their end?
Well, if it's from, put it this way, from Arima to Diego Martin, all right? I mean, we got the first call on the line with us from Diego Martin, all right?
Maybe they went wireless, but Amplia doesn't cover everybody, so their service is being disrupted. I'm just saying. But let me go back to the point just before we were trying to take the calls. And we got back Diego Martin. I don't know if it's the same Diego Martin, but hey, let's go straight to this call and see if we can get this person on air.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, morning.
Good morning.
Probably a good solution to flooding in some areas is the government to buy out a few properties to establish retention funds. So the water will accumulate in those areas. Well, of course, you'd have to make some drains larger than they presently have to take the water to the main river courses after. But that would be a solution. Also, too, there's a rule of thumb when you're constructing a house that you should build your house above the center of the road level. It should be at least 12 inches above the center of the road level. And that rule of thumb has always been there.
And not followed.
I don't know if you would allow me, there's another subject, another matter that I touched on sometime last week concerning creating some more technical schools in the country. Do I have time to address that?
Yeah, go ahead. If you have a minute. Go ahead if you a minute. Yeah.
Let me tell you something. MIC would capture persons between 17, 18 to 25. Turning the junior secondary schools, what used to be the junior secondary schools, into technical colleges would capture young men at about the age of 13 years old. Right? So I'm sure you could take it from there. All right, take care. Bye.
Thank you very much. And then there's a gap between 13 and 18. There's a gap between, unless you're saying that junior secondary schools will capture students from 13 to 18, if that's what you're saying.
Well, I don't think they go to 18 in junior sex.
No, well, no, junior sex go up, if I'm not mistaken, to Form 5.
Okay.
Right?
Really?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think they go up to Form 5.
What's the point of calling them junior?
Some of them actually go up to Form 6, but I know quite a few actually go up to Form 5.
Isn't that defeats the whole purpose of the whole junior sec system?
Listen, it's very easy to get out of school. Very easy. You can get out of school in Form 3. You have NCSE for that.
No, but what I'm saying is there's a reason why you had senior sec and junior sec. And I believe it was to what extent the junior secs did not go all the way, if my memory serves correct. So
no,
now,
they didn't.
if they're all 5-year to 6-year to 7-year schools, then what's the point?
We have a caller line with us from Shigonas. I think caller from Digger Martin. I think you should call back, maybe not today, on Monday, to elaborate further on the point, because I want to say the point that you're making. We didn't get all of it. Good morning, caller from Shigonas. Good morning, caller from Shigonas. I'm hearing myself. Could you hear me through your phone?
Please turn on your TV, sir. Or ma'am.
Good day, gentlemen.
Good day.
Good day.
I see yesterday. No, hello?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you. Hi, good morning.
Hello?
Hello.
Gentlemen, any
I know Professor has had issues. It's not his TV because multiple times he says he's lowered his TV. So I think it's with his phone. We've had this situation before. I'm sorry, Professor.
Third time's the charm. Caller line with us from Arima. Good morning, caller.
Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, we can hear you.
The 628 number I work in.
Okay.
Now, in response to your co-host, right?
Uh-huh.
When I tell you to have no PhD, no the letters PhD, you don't have that in common sense, ignorance, and intelligence. See what's going on? When our bulletins in this country are about events to come and how we prepare for it, Trinidad and Tobago is lucky.
Very.
What happened the day before, in this situation, it was already happening. Right? So, the effect of the flooding, so nobody had a child outside. So the minister break in the morning to make no decision. That should have done since midnight the night before. Second thing, poor planning does always show its head. Always. You just can't hide from it. You see, in this situation, schools could have been online instead. And not even the miss a day. But when the ministry spoke up, no online engagement. And the Prime Minister, look at his attitude on public servants working from home. This is what it is have. So our governance system is on popularity and who looking good and not doing nothing. I'm going to give you the classic example before I leave. When the Prime Minister tell you government allocation tax is so small, he forget that the government's role, sir, is to be a facilitator and to create the necessary legal framework. So we're supposed to see a map of Trinidad with the lands that are available, how the access roads would be fixed to such lands, if it's 2 acres and 10-acre plots, and how you apply for it. What would be the cost of the lease? What assistance you got giving irrigation and setting up if it's a greenhouse or open field farming. You ain't get nothing like that. And with regards to my MP, people calling at 4 o'clock in the morning. We are waiting for her to come to ask us to vote for her. Because we ain't seen nothing. That money with us in the last 2 years, and the old man from Digger Martin tell you is really to pay debts because we ain't seen nothing. Right now our bridge down and the whole village cut off. So
thank you very much, sir. You know, that last point you made. Alright, I'll give you an example. Classic example. Try to get in contact with a counselor. This individual has constantly kept in contact. I've been trying to get in contact with them. Right opposite their house is a large opening between the road and the drain, right? Where there's no cover anymore, right? So the council's office is directly opposite this hole. A car actually went down in the hole because you can't see it. They covered it with some board, and when the rains came, that board became soaked. The car went down in the hole, damaged the front bumper of the car. Who's going to have to pay for that, right? Constantly, for months now, trying to get in contact with the councillor. Can't get in contact with the councillor, no action from the councillor. Opposite right office. You know this man start campaigning and ring on the individual's doorbell to find out if they're voting for him again? Right?
Well, in that case, it would be, when your car, loses its bumper, fine. But with regards to the caller, right, caller from Arima, right? I would say, you could tell your MP, well, I'll tell you what, only communicate with us at 4 p.m. Maybe it was at 4 p.m.
No,
Whoever's awake will come to respond.
According to Alcoa, it's 4 a.m.
4 a.m. Sorry, that's what I meant. 4 a.m. Whoever's awake at 4 a.m. You'll probably get their vote.
No problem, Lisa Morris, Julian. No problem at all. Because I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm calling somebody at 4 a.m. But again, MP and MP's job is 24 hours. Somebody debate that with me. I have no problem.
Listen. Well, minister, not MP, minister.
No, I would even say MP. I would say MP as well.
A friend of mine, the local, I think it was either local government or whoever, somebody, a politician came campaigning door to door. So he had a conversation and he kind of left the politician, reeling, because it's easy for you to come and be all nice and whatever. But if you don't actually deliver anything, then eventually somebody's going to call you out. We just don't have enough people willing to do that.
Listen, call it, if any MP who anyway, listen, Lisa Morris, Julian, I know you're taking some peacock this morning, but I wouldn't be entirely surprised if you contact your constituents to ask them if they're voting for you in the next election and they say, yes, sure, we're voting for you. We'll cast our ballots at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. So just before we leave, I want to remind everybody, it is the last day to apply or to register for the Youth Agricultural Shade House Project. It's for young nationals 16 to 35, so you don't have to be that young. Once you've completed secondary school, you can have a 1-year course to help train you with regards to farming, right? You could call at 612-9367 extension 3033 or visit www.mydns, that's www.mydns.gov.tt. We talk about agriculture on this show a lot. A lot of people want to say diversification and food security. This is part of it. So if you know anybody that might be suited for this, who knows? This could be...
What's our website? mydns?
mydns.gov.tt.
Okay, .gov.tt. Okay, wonderful. And actually, I think that's really good what they're showing. That's excellent. Yes, you're right. We always speak about diversification. There is opportunity out there. There's a program that is being provided for you. Utilize it. Let the government spend some money on us. Utilize it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, as we close, thank you very much once more to our callers this morning. We are so sorry that we couldn't hear from anybody because our phone lines are down, or it could be your phone lines, whatever. TSTT, if you can hear us.
I
SOS.
think the last caller might be onto something, but we'll see.
But for now, Shawn Michael Small, today is a good day to have a great weekend.
It's too hot, though. It's too hot.
Okay, don't start your nonsense now. It's too late in the day. It's too early in the morning and too late in the day.
Too warm.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen.
October.
Goodbye.
It's supposed to be cooler.